I received an invitation from my children, promising a special birthday celebration. The message was full of warmth, even excitement, something I hadn't felt in a long time. They said they wanted to make it a day to remember, a celebration of me. The idea of a family gathering made my heart flutter. I hadn't seen much of them lately, and part of me wondered if this was the moment where things would finally go back to the way they used to be, the way they should be. But as the day approached, a growing sense of unease gnawed at me. Every time I thought about the gathering, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. I couldn't pinpoint why or how, but it was there, lurking just beneath the surface. Maybe it was the way they had been distant in the months leading up to this. Maybe it was the way Jason's voice faltered on the phone when he'd called to remind me, "Don't forget, Mom. We've been planning this for weeks." I thought to myself, maybe this would finally be the family gathering I've longed for, a chance for all of us to reconnect. The idea of all of us gathered together under one roof, my children, my grandchildren, laughter, memories, felt like something I had been yearning for. After all, how long had it been since we shared a genuine moment of togetherness? The years had flown by, filled with little more than busy schedules and short, transactional phone calls. Could this be the moment we finally came back together? I brushed it off, convincing myself that I was simply being paranoid. This would be a day for celebration, a day to reconnect, to remember what truly mattered. I pushed the discomfort aside and focused on the positives. This was my family, my children. It had to be good, right? I arrived at the restaurant, Bella Vista Grill, elegant, warm, and bustling with the usual Friday night crowd, the kind of place we had gone to for years. A backdrop for so many family celebrations. Jason and Kiara were already seated at a table by the window, the soft light casting a glow around them. It should have felt like home. But something was different this time. Something in the air wasn't right. I could see it in their faces. Jason looked nervous, fidgeting with his napkin as if it was too much to sit still. And Kiara had that too wide smile on her face, the one that felt just a little too practiced. I had hoped this would be the reunion I'd been longing for, but my instincts told me otherwise. We exchanged pleasantries, and I sat down. For a moment, everything seemed fine. We talked about the weather, Jason's work, and Kiara's plans for the house. A house that had been mine for so many years. A house I'd helped them pay for without them ever knowing. But there was an underlying tension that hung in the air. Something unspoken that felt heavier with every word. Then came the words that hit me like a freight train. Kiara, with her too sweet smile, wiped her lips and said, "Well, we've been talking, and we think it's time to have an important conversation with you." Her tone was syrupy, as if she were trying to soften a blow, but I knew instantly that it was a punch in the gut. I was stunned. My heart sank into the pit of my stomach, but I kept my face neutral, not letting them see the pain that shot through me. Why is this happening? I wanted to shout, to scream, but I remained silent. How could they treat me this way? I had given them everything, poured my heart into making sure they had what they needed, and now they were making decisions for me, without even asking. I had to hold it together. I couldn't let them see how much it hurt, how much this betrayal cut into me. I'd spent my entire life trying to make them proud, trying to keep the family together, and now, this. The words Kiara spoke felt like they were being dragged from the deepest part of me, like something inside me had been torn open. Kiara's next words were the ones that shattered the fragile composure I had left. "We just don't think it's safe for you to live alone anymore, Nia. We think you need more help than we can give you." I wanted to scream. How could they think this? How could Jason sit there, nodding in agreement, as if everything she said was true? I had never asked for their help. I had managed everything, my home, my finances, my life, but now they had decided for me. as if I were a child who needed protection. I tried to hold back the tears, the swell of emotion that was threatening to break me. The sting of betrayal, of manipulation, hit harder than I could have prepared for. How could they do this to me? I thought. They hadn't even asked how I felt about it. It was as if my opinion didn't matter anymore, but I didn't let them see it. I kept my composure, swallowed the lump in my throat, and quietly took a sip of my wine. My mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts, memories of years spent building a life, raising a son who I thought understood me, a daughter-in-law who had always seemed so sweet and charming. And now, this. I kept hearing Kiara's voice in my head, the words repeating over and over. We think it's time for you to move into an assisted living facility. The words felt like a slap. No consultation, no care, just a decision made for me as if I were no longer capable of making my own. I felt betrayed, but I would not let them see it. Not yet, as Kiara's words echoed in my head. A heavy silence settled between us, broken only by the clink of silverware and the murmur of distant conversations around us. I stared at the half-empty glass in front of me, the wine slowly swirling, trying to steady the storm of emotions inside me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something I had been blind to for years. This wasn't the first time my children had tried to manipulate me, to control me, to make me feel small. It wasn't the first time I had been made to feel like I was incapable of managing my own life. My mind raced back to earlier moments, the subtle hints that I had always brushed off as concern or helpful advice. I could still hear Jason's voice from just a few months ago, that tone he always used when he wanted to push me into something I didn't want. Mom, maybe it's time we help you more around the house. You've been forgetting things lately. Maybe you shouldn't drive so much anymore. You don't want to hurt yourself. I had laughed it off at the time, thinking he was just being overly cautious. I'm fine, Jason, I'd said, but deep down, something in my chest had tightened, a feeling I couldn't shake, even though I told myself it was nothing. But now, I could see it for what it was, a subtle attempt to push me into submission, to make me doubt myself. I remember Kiara's words, too. At first, they had seemed kind. You know, Nia, it might be easier if you let someone help you with the bills. You've been managing it all yourself for so long. We'd be happy to take care of it for you. At the time, I thought nothing of it. But now, I saw it for what it truly was. She didn't want to help. She wanted control. They had both been slowly working to strip me of my independence, to get me to a place where they could take over without my resistance. As the memory of their actions piled up, I felt a sharp sting of realization. They had been grooming me for this moment, slowly eroding my sense of self, undermining my confidence in my own abilities. All those subtle comments about my memory, my health, my decisions. It was all part of their plan. They didn't want to care for me because they loved me. They wanted to take over because they saw me as a burden, a liability to their lives. And in my naivety, I had let it happen. I should have seen it. I should have noticed the small signs along the way, the whispers of doubt they planted in my mind, the moments where they seemed to want me to need them, but I didn't. I wanted to believe that they were just concerned, that they had my best interests at heart. I kept telling myself that they loved me, that they cared, that this was just their way of looking out for me. But now I realize I was wrong. I had been blind. For years, I let them walk all over me. I let their subtle manipulations go unchecked, and I didn't realize how much they were taking from me until now. The betrayal stung deeper than I could have imagined. They didn't just want to control my living situation. They wanted to control my life, every decision, every action, every step, and I had let them. They had made me doubt myself, made me question my abilities, made me feel like I wasn't enough, but I was enough. I always had been. It was them who had been trying to make me feel small. The anger bubbled up inside me, but I didn't let it show. I couldn't. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break down, of seeing me fall into their trap. No, I was better than that. I wouldn't let them see how much this hurt. I couldn't let them think they had won. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. No more. No more letting them control me. I had spent my whole life giving, supporting, sacrificing, and where had it gotten me? In the hands of people who thought I was weak, who thought they could make decisions for me because they thought I couldn't handle my own life. I wouldn't let that happen anymore. I vowed to regain control. I wouldn't let them take me down this path again, no matter what it cost me. I was going to fight for my independence, for my dignity. I was going to take my life back, piece by piece. The conversation at the restaurant had ended, but the impact of it lingered, settling in my chest like a stone that wouldn't budge. As I walked back to my car, the quiet of the night was deafening. The usual hum of the city, the distant sound of traffic, felt like an alien noise in my ears. I had been blindsided by their words, by the way they had taken away my agency with such casualness, as though it was the most natural thing in the world to decide my future for me. I slid into the driver's seat, the leather cool beneath me, and placed my hands on the steering wheel. My knuckles were white from gripping it too tightly, but I couldn't let go. I needed something to anchor me. I thought back to Jason and Kiara. Their faces, their voices, each line, each word they said felt like it was carved into my memory, but I couldn't focus on that right now. I had to focus on what came next. I had always been the caretaker, the peacemaker, the one who kept everything together. Even when my own life felt like it was falling apart, I had let them walk all over me for too long, thinking I was doing the right thing, thinking I was doing what was best for everyone. But now, I saw it clearly. They didn't need me. They wanted to control me. I couldn't just sit by and let them take over, let them dictate my life like they had already started to. No. This was the moment I had been avoiding. The moment I needed to face head on. I needed to stand up for myself. And for once, I needed to let them see that I wasn't the helpless old woman they thought I was. I kept driving, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. The anger was bubbling inside me, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid to feel it. I had spent so many years brushing off the little things they said, dismissing their comments about my health or my memory, because I didn't want to believe they were trying to control me. I didn't want to believe that the people I loved would do something like that to me. But now I knew the truth. They had been undermining me for years, slowly making me doubt myself so they could take over. They had disguised their manipulation as concern, as help. But it was a lie. It was all a game. A way to get me to a point where I'd be too afraid to fight back, too afraid to stand up for myself. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had given them enough power over me. I had spent my life doing everything for them, sacrificing my time, my energy, my independence. But it wasn't enough. They wanted more. They wanted control. I had spent so many years pretending that everything was fine, telling myself that I was helping them, that I was doing the right thing. But now I realized that by giving in to their demands, I was letting them take everything from me. I couldn't let that happen anymore. I knew I had to fight. I wasn't going to let them walk all over me any longer. They were going to see that I wasn't the woman they thought I was. I wasn't weak. I wasn't frail. I wasn't someone they could push around. I would stand my ground. And this time, I wasn't going to let anyone take away my dignity. It was time to face them again. The day had come, and I found myself sitting across from Jason and Kiara in the same restaurant where everything had spiraled out of control. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was supposed to be a place of family gatherings, of good times. But instead, it had become the stage for their betrayal. Now, it would be the stage for my first real stand. I didn't need to raise my voice. I didn't need to shout or cry or plead. I had learned that power wasn't always about confrontation. Sometimes it was about restraint. I had been quiet for so long, letting them think they had the upper hand. But now they were going to see something different. Jason and Kiara both seemed a little on edge, not quite knowing what to expect. Jason, fidgeting with his napkin as usual, looked at me with a mix of nervousness and uncertainty. Kiara, with that too perfect smile, seemed to be bracing herself for another round of me quietly accepting whatever they decided. But this time, it was different. I didn't immediately dive into the conversation. Instead, I let the silence linger, allowing it to stretch between us. Sometimes, silence said more than words ever could. It was my way of showing them that I didn't need to speak in order to command respect. I looked at Jason first, meeting his eyes. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," I began, my voice steady but calm. "About the assisted living facility." Jason's face shifted uncomfortably. He opened his mouth to speak, but I held up my hand, silencing him. "I've had time to reflect," I continued, "and I've come to a decision." I paused, letting the weight of my words settle in the air. Kiara's smile faltered for just a moment, and I noticed the subtle shift in her posture. She was used to pushing me into corners, making me feel small. But now, she was on the defensive. "I'm not ready to move anywhere," I said, keeping my tone level. "I've been managing on my own for years, and I'll continue to do so." As I spoke, a sense of calm confidence washed over me. This wasn't the first time I'd had to stand up for myself, but this time felt different. This time, it wasn't about defending myself out of desperation. This time, I knew who I was. I knew the power I held, and I wasn't afraid to let them see it. I didn't need to scream or shout to make them understand. My silence spoke louder than any of their excuses ever could. By staying calm, by not allowing them to rattle me, I was taking back the power they had tried to strip from me. They had tried to make me feel weak, like I couldn't manage my own life. But now, they were going to see that I had always been capable. "I've worked hard my whole life to build the life I have," I added, my voice strong, but controlled. "And I'm not going to let anyone, no matter who they are, take that from me." Jason looked away, and Kiara's perfect smile turned tight, her eyes flashing with a mix of confusion and frustration. They had underestimated me. They thought they could push me around, make decisions for me, but I wasn't the woman they thought I was. I sat back in my chair, allowing a quiet moment to pass. The air between us was thick with tension, but I remained unfazed. I didn't need to justify my decision, and I certainly didn't need their approval. I was reclaiming my power, and there was nothing they could say to change that. The weight of everything I had been silently holding on started to feel unbearable. My mind raced as I watched Jason and Kiara, their faces strained with the discomfort of our growing confrontation. The silence in the room had shifted. It was no longer the oppressive silence of tension, but the heavy silence of revelation. I had been quiet for so long, letting them dictate the terms of my life. But now it was time for the truth to surface. Jason's unease was palpable, and Kiara, her composure slowly crumbling, shot me a glare that I could feel burning into me. I knew she thought she had me cornered, that I would cave under the weight of their expectations. They had underestimated me for far too long. It was time to show them just how much I had done behind the scenes, how much I had quietly supported them while they took it all for granted. "I've been thinking about the conversation we had last time," I said, my voice steady but carrying an edge. "About what you both want for me, and how you think I need help managing my life. But you've both been missing something." They looked at each other, confusion painting their faces. Kiara opened her mouth to respond, but I raised my hand, signaling for her to wait. I wasn't done yet. I've been supporting you both for years. I continued. For more years than either of you realize. Jason's eyebrows furrowed. What are you talking about, Mum? I leaned forward, allowing the weight of my words to hang between us. I've been paying your mortgage. I've been covering your bills, Kiara's car, the renovations you made to your home, the vacations you took last year. I paused, watching their faces as the truth sank in. You think you've been managing your finances on your own, but you've been living off my money all this time, and you didn't even know it. The silence that followed was deafening. I saw Jason's eyes widen, his mouth opening as if to speak, but unable to find the words. Kiara, however, looked like she had swallowed a bitter pill. The facade of control she had so carefully crafted was crumbling before her. For the first time, I saw the faintest crack in her usually confident demeanor. I paid off your mortgage when you couldn't afford it, I said, my voice unwavering. When you were on the verge of losing everything, I quietly took care of it. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to feel indebted. I didn't want to be a burden. But now I realize that keeping this secret from you wasn't helping anyone. Not me. And certainly not you. I wasn't angry, at least. Not at this moment. But as the truth settled in, I felt something I hadn't expected. I felt a strange mix of pride and betrayal. I had quietly worked hard to secure my independence. I had been paying for their lives without them even knowing it, keeping it all in the shadows, thinking I was doing the right thing. I felt proud of how well I had managed my finances, proud of my ability to stay independent while quietly supporting them. But as the reality of the situation hit me, the betrayal I felt was overwhelming. I had poured my time, my money, my energy into their lives, and they had never once acknowledged it. Not once had they asked about the sacrifices I made or the choices I had to make to keep everything going. The truth stung. They had taken everything I gave, expecting it to keep flowing, and I had let it happen. I hadn't asked for recognition or thanks, but I had certainly hoped that one day they would see what I had done for them. But no, they had taken me for granted, thinking that I would always be there to pick up the pieces when things went wrong. And now, when I needed them the most, they were willing to strip away my independence without even a second thought. The tension in the room was unbearable, the air thick with unspoken words. Every glance between Jason and Kiara felt like a challenge. For years, I had allowed them to control my decisions, my actions, my life. But now, as I sat across from them, I could feel the surge of strength within me, an energy I hadn't felt in years. The woman they thought was weak, the woman they believed they could control, was standing right before them, and she was not backing down. I've had enough, I said, my voice calm but firm. I've let you both walk all over me for too long, and it ends now. Jason and Kiara exchanged a quick look, their expressions filled with confusion and frustration. It was as if they couldn't comprehend that I wasn't going to sit back and take it anymore. You don't get to make decisions for me anymore, I continued, meeting their eyes without flinching. I'm not your project, your responsibility, or your burden to fix. I've spent years supporting both of you, giving, doing everything I could to make your lives easier. And how do you repay me? By telling me I need to be put in a home, treating me like I'm incapable of taking care of myself. Jason shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His hands gripped the edge of the table, and I could see the guilt on his face. Kiara, on the other hand, sat back, crossing her arms, her eyes narrowing as if preparing for an argument. But I wasn't giving them that satisfaction anymore. I wasn't going to argue or defend myself. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the whirlwind of emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. But this time, I wasn't afraid to feel it. I wasn't afraid of their judgment or their manipulation. For the first time in a long time, I felt powerful. You think I can't handle my own life anymore. You think I need you to step in and take control. But you're wrong, I said, my voice steady, unwavering. I've been handling my life just fine without your interference. I've done more for both of you than you've ever realized. And now I'm done being your puppet. In that moment, I felt liberated. I wasn't shouting or making a scene. I didn't need to. My words were enough. I felt the weight of all the years I had spent keeping quiet, suppressing my own needs, my own desires, just to make sure everyone else was okay. But now, it was time for me. It was time to reclaim my power. For so long, I had been the one who kept everything together, the one who took care of everyone, my children, my family, and all along, I had ignored my own needs, my own desires, because I thought it was what I was supposed to do. But now, I realized that I had been living for them, not for myself. I had given everything to them. And what did I have left? A lifetime of regret, of resentment, of silence, but no more. For the first time in years, I was standing up for myself. I wasn't asking for permission. I wasn't begging for approval. I was simply asserting the truth. I was strong. I was capable. And I didn't need anyone to take care of me but myself. As the words left my mouth, I felt the weight of years of emotional manipulation begin to lift. I wasn't sure how this conversation would end, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that I had finally found my voice. The words hung in the air, heavy and unspoken, as Jason and Kiara sat there in stunned silence. I watched them, knowing that what I had just said had completely shattered the illusion they had created, one where they controlled my life without me even realizing it. Jason was the first to speak, though his voice faltered. "Mom, what are you talking about?" he asked, the confusion and hurt clear in his eyes. "Why are you doing this? Why can't you just accept our help?" Kiara, her face pale with disbelief, shot me a look of pure frustration. "You don't understand," she said, almost pleading. "We were just trying to make sure you were okay. You can't keep living like this. We're just trying to help." I couldn't help but notice the edge of anger that started creeping into her voice. It was the anger of someone who realized they had lost control. I had always been the one who put my family's needs before mine, always been the one who took care of them. And now, as I refused to bend to their will, I could see the cracks forming in their carefully constructed facade. But as their anger and confusion spilled out, I felt something unexpected. Not guilt, not regret, but something else. Relief. For the first time in years, I was standing up for myself, and the weight of carrying everyone else's expectations, their demands, their manipulations, was beginning to lift. Jason and Kiara's lives, the one they had carefully orchestrated around my obedience, were beginning to unravel. I could see it in their eyes, in the way their bodies stiffened and their voices rose. They weren't angry at me. They were angry at themselves for being exposed. I had no intention of letting this happen again. I knew I couldn't live in their shadows any longer. I couldn't go back to the way things were. The emotional toll it had taken on me, the years of being unseen and unheard, it had to end. I had already made my decision. I had started the process of securing my future, making sure that no one, not even my children, could take control of my life again. I had contacted a lawyer, set up a trust, and ensured that my assets were protected. It wasn't about punishing them. It was about protecting myself, securing the independence that had been so ruthlessly taken from me. Watching Jason and Kiara's reactions was painful, but I knew it was necessary. I felt a mix of relief and sadness. Part of me wanted to reach out, to tell them it wasn't too late to change, to ask for their understanding, but I knew that doing so would only weaken my resolve. This wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. They had spent so much time manipulating me, convincing me that my worth was tied to their approval, their needs. But the truth was, my life, my worth, was never tied to them. It was always mine to own. It hurt to see Jason look at me like that, like I was the one who had wronged him, but I had spent too long living for others. My whole life had been a reflection of their needs, their demands, their expectations. Now, I had to start living for me. I had no more time for guilt, no more time for fear. They would have to learn, just as I had, that love doesn't mean losing yourself. I would no longer be their pawn in their game of control. I had already started rebuilding my life. The truth had been painful, but it had also set me free. It's been a few months since the confrontation, and I find myself in a place I never thought I'd be: free from the manipulation, free from the constant weight of my children's expectations, and free, finally, from the burden I had carried for so long. The house feels different now, quieter, not in the way a house feels when it's empty, but in a peaceful way. The hum of daily life, the rush of obligations, has faded, replaced by something softer, more manageable. I've slowly started filling the empty spaces with things that truly matter to me, things I had put aside for years, thinking they weren't as important as everyone else's needs. I've rediscovered old passions, things I used to love but had forgotten about. I've started painting again, something I hadn't done in decades. It's amazing how much joy comes from holding a paintbrush again, from letting my creativity flow freely without worrying about who might need me next. I've also started reading for pleasure, something I had neglected for so long, diving into books that take me to new places and ideas. It's strange, but in the quiet of my home, I've found a part of myself I didn't even know I had lost. I've taken up gardening, something my late husband Robert and I used to do together. I never realized how much I missed it until I started planting flowers in the backyard again. The smell of fresh earth, the simple satisfaction of watching something grow. It feels grounding. These small moments of peace have been the most healing of all. But it's not just about rediscovering old hobbies. It's about rediscovering myself. I've realized how much I've neglected the woman I used to be, the one who had dreams, desires, and a life before anyone else's needs took precedence. I'm not just existing anymore. I'm living. I'm doing things for me, and it feels good. For the first time in years, I'm not living for anyone but myself. I can take a walk in the park without feeling guilty for not being somewhere else. I can cook dinner without it feeling like a chore. I can sit in silence without worrying about what I'm supposed to be doing next. Peace has settled over me in ways I never expected. I wake up each morning without the burden of anticipation, of what I need to do for someone else, of what they expect from me. Instead, I wake up with a sense of possibility, a feeling that today is mine. It's the strangest thing, this newfound peace. I used to fill my days with so many responsibilities, so much noise, and now, in the quiet of my own space, I feel a sense of calm that I've never known before. There are moments when I still miss them, when I remember the years I spent loving my children, supporting them, doing everything I could for them, and sometimes, I wonder if I made the right choice by cutting them out of my life the way I did. But those moments are fleeting, passing quickly, replaced by the certainty that I did the right thing for me. I'm learning to trust myself again, to trust my instincts. I don't need to second guess every decision, every action. I've spent so much of my life seeking validation from others, seeking approval from people who only saw me as a tool for their own gain. Now, I am my own validation. I make choices based on what feels right for me, not out of obligation or fear of disappointing someone else. For the first time in years, I feel light. My thoughts are clear. I can breathe. It had been weeks since the confrontation, weeks since I'd taken control of my life and started to live for myself. The peace I had found was like a delicate calm, one I had never experienced before. Every day, I woke up with a sense of freedom, the weight of my past lifting just a little more with each passing hour. But that morning, as I sat at the kitchen table sipping my coffee, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but something about it made me pause. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello?" I said, my voice steady but a little unsure. "M's Nia Sterling." A man's voice came through the phone, smooth but authoritative. "This is Detective Harris from the local precinct. I'm afraid I have some news for you." My stomach clenched at the sound of his voice. Something about the way he said it sent a chill through me. "I'm sorry to call you so abruptly, but we've come across some information that might concern you. You may want to sit down." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I didn't sit down. I couldn't. I stood, my grip on the phone tightening as I tried to brace myself for what was to come. He continued, "We've been investigating a case related to your late husband's estate, Robert Sterling, and some discrepancies have come up that we think you should be aware of." I felt my heart skip a beat. The news didn't make sense. Robert had passed away years ago, and since then, I had managed everything on my own. We had always been careful, responsible with our finances, and I never imagined that anything could be left unresolved after his death. But now, a wave of doubt swept over me. Discrepancies. What kind of discrepancies? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Well, it's a bit complicated," Detective Harris said. "It seems that Robert's will, the one you had in your possession, might not have been the final version. We've discovered an earlier draft of his will, one that he never mentioned to you, and it contains some changes that could impact your current financial standing." My mind went blank. I felt like the ground beneath me was shifting, and the world I had so carefully rebuilt was starting to crumble. What was he talking about? "What changes?" he went on, his voice calm, but with an edge of urgency. "We are still investigating, but we need to confirm some details with you. We'll need you to come down to the precinct to discuss this further. There are some serious implications regarding the assets you've inherited." I was stunned. My whole body seemed to freeze as I processed his words. I had spent years building a life without ever thinking that Robert's estate might hold secrets that could shake everything I had worked so hard for. He had always been so meticulous, so careful with everything we built together. We were partners, and I had never questioned his decisions until now. I sat down slowly, my mind racing. What was this? Why hadn't Robert told me about this earlier version of his will? Was there something he hadn't trusted me with? Had I missed something all those years ago when I thought everything was in order? The shock of it all was overwhelming. I had thought I was finally free from the weight of the past, free to live my life without the burden of emotional manipulation or financial chaos. But now, just as I was beginning to breathe easy, my past had come crashing back into my life, dragging me into a web of secrets and uncertainties. I felt the sting of betrayal, but it wasn't just from Jason and Kira anymore. It was from someone I had trusted more than anyone else in the world. Robert had always been my rock, the person who I thought would never keep secrets from me. And yet here I was, discovering something that threatened to unravel everything. I had to make a decision. I had to decide if I was going to confront this new truth, no matter how painful it might be. I couldn't ignore it, and I couldn't pretend it didn't matter. The past was never truly gone, no matter how hard I tried to leave it behind. But could I handle it? Could I bear the weight of whatever this new revelation might bring? As I sat by the window, watching the soft light of dusk spill over the garden, a wave of tranquility washed over me. I could feel it in my bones, in the very core of who I was. Peace, real peace, not the kind that comes from ignoring problems or pushing them aside, but the kind that comes from facing your fears, confronting your past, and finally choosing to live for yourself. I had come a long way since the days when I allowed others to define me. I had spent so much of my life trying to make everyone else happy, trying to meet their expectations and keep the peace, even at the cost of my own happiness. But now, sitting in the quiet of my home, I realized that I had finally found the strength to break free. The emotional turmoil, the manipulation, the sense of being used. It was all behind me. I had faced my children, and though it had been painful, I had taken control of my life again. I had let go of the guilt, the doubts that had plagued me for so long. I had accepted that the past was a part of me, but it no longer had the power to control me. I had rebuilt my life. I had rediscovered my passions, painting, gardening, reading, and I found joy in the simple moments I had once overlooked. The feeling of a paintbrush in my hand, the quiet hum of my house as I worked in the garden. It all filled me with a deep sense of fulfillment. I had taken the time to reconnect with myself, to nurture the parts of me that had been buried under the weight of everyone else's needs for so long. It wasn't just about the hobbies or the activities. It was about reclaiming my independence. I had learned that I didn't need anyone's approval to be happy. I didn't need anyone to validate my choices. I had spent so many years waiting for others to tell me I was enough. But now I knew that I had always been enough. I was whole on my own, without anyone else's influence clouding my sense of self. I finally feel at peace. It's a peace that runs deeper than just the absence of conflict. It's the kind of peace that comes from within, from knowing that I am strong enough to face whatever life throws at me, no matter how difficult it may be. For the first time in years, I wake up every day knowing that the only person I need to answer to is myself. The feeling is liberating, and yet, it comes with a sense of bittersweet reflection. I look back at the years I spent bending over backward for others, putting everyone else's needs ahead of my own. I wonder how different things could have been if I had only stood up for myself sooner, but I don't regret it. Those experiences, those years, have shaped me into the woman I am now, and now, I know that I am more than capable of living a life that is true to who I am. I still think about my children, about the betrayal, about the way they tried to control my life. It still hurts, and I'm not sure if it ever will completely fade. But I've learned to let go of the need for closure, the need for them to apologize or acknowledge the harm they caused. I don't need that from them anymore. I found closure within myself. My strength doesn't come from the approval of others. It comes from within me, from the quiet moments where I reflect on how far I've come. I've learned that I can stand on my own, that I can face the world with my head held high, knowing that I've earned the right to be free. The day had come. My children had reached out to me, asking for one last meeting, one final attempt at reconciliation. But as I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my blouse, I realized that what I had been waiting for, the apology, the understanding, was never going to come. I wasn't sure if I was ready for this meeting, but I knew one thing for sure. I was no longer the same woman who had walked into that restaurant months ago. I wasn't the woman who had allowed herself to be controlled and manipulated. As I drove to the agreed meeting place, a small cafe in town, I reflected on everything that had happened. The confrontation, the anger, the emotional distance. My thoughts were clear now. I had spent years trying to keep my family together, trying to be the perfect mother, the perfect provider, but it had cost me my sense of self, my independence, and my peace of mind. I had sacrificed so much. And for what? To be treated as though I were disposable? To be manipulated into thinking I was weak and incapable? But that was the past. I had learned. I had grown. And today, I wasn't walking into that cafe hoping for their approval. I was walking in knowing that I didn't need it. When I arrived, Jason and Kiara were already seated. They both looked up as I entered, but neither of them spoke. I sat down across from them, my posture straight, my eyes steady. No one said anything for a long moment, and in that silence, I felt the weight of everything that had happened between us. I could see it in their faces, the regret, the uncertainty, but I wasn't looking for their apologies anymore. I wasn't searching for any form of validation from them. Finally, Kiara spoke, her voice soft. Mom, we wanted to talk to you, to apologize for everything that's happened, for the way we treated you. We didn't understand how much we hurt you. Jason, looking almost guilty, nodded in agreement. We never meant for things to get this bad. I'm sorry. I sat back, letting their words wash over me. But inside, I wasn't moved the way I thought I would be. I didn't need their apology. It wasn't going to change anything. Not anymore. What I needed, what I had needed all along, was for them to see me, to truly see me, not as a means to an end, but as a person worthy of respect and love. But I had learned to stop seeking that from them. I listened to them speak, but I didn't feel the rush of emotion that I thought would come. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I wasn't even disappointed. I simply felt calm. It was a strange kind of peace, one I hadn't known I was capable of. I had let go of the need for their approval a long time ago. I no longer needed them to validate my existence or tell me I was worthy. I had learned that I was enough, just as I was. For the first time, I didn't feel the pressure to make everything okay. I didn't feel the urge to fix things for them, to make them feel better about the past. I had already made peace with it. I had already forgiven myself for the years I had spent sacrificing my own happiness for their convenience. The truth was, I had reclaimed my life. I had taken back my independence, my strength, and my peace of mind. They could apologize all they wanted, but I was no longer the woman who would bend to their will. I wasn't the woman who would sacrifice my needs for theirs. I was free. I looked at both of them, my heart steady, my mind clear. I appreciate your apologies, I do. But I want you to understand this. I'm not waiting for your forgiveness anymore, and I don't need your approval. I've let go of the past, and I've learned to live for myself. I've reclaimed my life, and I'm not going back. Kiara and Jason looked at me, their faces a mixture of sadness and realization. I could see that they understood. They were finally seeing me as the woman I had always been, the woman they had never truly acknowledged. And for the first time in years, I felt no urge to try and fix it. I had already done the hard work. I had fixed myself.